Yeah. And we're back. Welcome back to the Aim a Little Higher podcast. Back by popular demand.
Wow. Big statement.
A big statement. Big statement. Sometimes I'm gonna resist freestyling today. Storm, do you want to freestyle?
Yeah.
Quick couple
I would not.
Quick couple bars?
I don't think I can live up to the standard that you've set.
Such a high precedent.
I know, it's unbelievable, really.
It's a shame. I thought like it could have been a warm up for you, and then this week you were gonna come with some fire bars like as soon as that beat dropped. And it's gonna become a thing back to back each week. Liza's gonna come in the week after with some bars, and like long term we end up like rap battling basically.
Wow, okay.
But no, that's cool. That's cool. I just put it out there.
I think that's a different type of podcast. I definitely wouldn't be a guest on that one.
Fair. Well, never say never. Never say never.
I could do that one from Karate Kid. Never say never. Never
Oh.
say it. Never with Justin Bieber.
He might be bigger than me, stronger than me.
His arms a little bit longer than me.
But
but
he
he
ain't on
ain't
a JB song with me. Yeah. Storm, can you name that movie?
I just said
Karate
it.
Kid.
Who was in it?
Jaden Smith.
Oh, look at that!
She's not that
I'm
young.
not that
Oh,
Not the original Karate Kid.
No.
Walked out there.
did you watch the original?
Yes, I did.
Oh my gosh, I am impressed.
I didn't really like the original. Sorry.
What? Why?
You can just cut that bit out. It's fine.
The original was
To be
amazing.
fair, like either of them I wasn't enthused by. I wouldn't watch them again.
The principles in that movie, wax on, wax off. The pointless, what felt like pointless exercises building up to something grand that in the end won him the
Well, you've ruined the
heaviest.
story for anyone else now.
If you've not seen Karate Kid at this point, I apologize. Like you deserve to have it ruined. there's a few movies like that. If you've not seen Titanic at this point, I mean I've not seen Titanic, but I never will. So that's
Yeah,
fair.
I think like anyone that survived Titanic, well done, because I didn't.
It's a long movie,
It's
right?
a long movie. It's like Avatar, so long.
I
I've
really
not-
like Avatar.
Do you know I've not seen Avatar?
It's really good.
I do really want to see it, but it's
Some
just
of it drags a
well,
little bit.
you've
though.
got to clear out a day, basically.
I mean, if you're
Yeah.
quiet quitting, then I guess it's a game that you just crack that on the computer, couldn't you, and watch that for 3 hours.
There you go. You're quite quick, and it's absolutely sorted out.
Lined up.
I should introduce. We have our panel back. It's your co-host Kamal. I was going not your boy. I'm Kamal. Joined as always by.
Your other co-host. Are we all co-hosts at this point?
I feel like I deserve the title of a co-host.
Yeah, you used to be a guest, and then you just keep coming back. At which point you just like.
Forcing us to
I
put
feel
her on
like
the
say
podcast.
again by popular demand. You've
keep
already used that phrase though.
coming up for the banana. So basically, at this point, our other co-host.
Eliza.
Welcome.
And Storm, and I think I actually said my name.
No, you
What did you
didn't.
do? Just say I'm a co. You're
I
either.
was like
you're-
the other co-host. Wait, are you a co-host too?
Oh, I thought
Yeah.
you were saying
She
I've got
missed her
to.
intro. It's done now.
Nobody knows who I am.
I thought you saying I've got to such a level now. I don't need to
I
introduce
don't
myself.
need introduction, guys.
You know
so
I'm here. You know what I mean?
Do you not know who I am?
Seriously, respect it. This podcast today actually it's beautiful because I've been saying we really want you as listeners to get involved in the podcast, right? We don't want to be in this like echo chamber of just us going back and forth. It's for you. So we like your feedback. We've had some feedback, which is awesome. There are some people who had a listen, loved some of the points, and had some follow-up questions or some follow-up points. They're like, hey, you touched on this, but I need you to go deeper, and love that. So thank you for your feedback. And that's what we're going to do today. Quiet Quitting Part 2. Before we start...
Well, we say part 2.
Yeah.
I'm guessing that's going to lie on your point. Part 2 of the Houses of Commons
Oh my gosh.
of
Part...
the UK's horrible British Parliament currently.
Oh my gosh. Oh yeah, what part are we on if we had to sit and count? In the last year, what, 3 Prime Ministers now?
Yeah, 3 Prime Ministers in a year.
No.
Slightly embarrassing.
Number
I mean,
3 has walked through the door.
We say slightly embarrassing, although
Mm.
let's look at like Russia that has Putin for the last however many years, and due to like a lot of elections being just fake and not really elections, slightly like not good.
Yeah.
It's farcical, but it is good that people like she didn't need to step down. She
didn't
could
at
have
all.
just messed up the whole entire country and gone, oh well,
Until
I'm going
you
to take and I'm
force me
going
out
to
of
take
this
my
door.
check. Do you know what I mean?
It's true.
And so I'm glad we live in a country where people do still feel embarrassment for not doing a good job, because there is a worst case scenario. And to be honest, arguably from what people are saying is like she shouldn't get her check, and also she doesn't care about the people at the bottom. Well, she didn't really care about you. She'd just stay in position.
Yeah.
You know what I
100%.
mean? So like I arguably think I'm glad that we live in a country where people feel like they've messed up and somebody else could do the job better, so I'll step down. Because otherwise there's a lot of people in this country that would just take that check of doing a bad job
Or
quite quick.
oh yeah, and also stay in the role for at least 111 days, just so they won't go down as like the shortest ever prime minister. And it becomes purely about how's my name going to be remembered, and they play those games instead of actually what's best for the country. So no, I find myself actually quite like feeling sorry for her, and just in the way of like how I think it's being dealt with. I know a lot of people don't. I do. I feel sorry for her. I think like she messed up. Don't get me wrong. But damn, man, the shortest ever prime minister in history, and
Is it
who's
the
going
fact
to
that
be
you
shorter?
feel sorry for her because she's a woman?
No,
Okay.
I feel sorry for her because it's as someone who got into a role, has done their best. She didn't do anything that lacked integrity. She wasn't like, it wasn't a character flaw. It was just bad decisions and a bad overall idea of how to fix the problem, which the members voted for, even though she told us before she got into power in all these debates what she was going to do. Rishi stood there and said, I've heard your plan. Your plan's bad. It's going to end up with mortgage rates, right? Blah, blah, blah. Everyone heard it, and they still voted for her. So it's like, you put this person in with a flawed plan. She told you the plan. She executed the plan, and you're like, oh, she's terrible. It's like, pay attention to when it was being said. Do you know what I mean? So I feel sorry for her in that sense. If I've said I've got this idea, and you'll go, yeah, putting you in, go and do the idea. Then I do the idea, and then you're like, that idea was rubbish. You're the worst prime minister ever. I feel a bit sorry for her. Do you know what I mean? And then the press is just, oh, well, you know what our media system's like. Once they get a target, it's go hard.
Yeah, I'll just do a good job and then you won't be the media's target.
That's the other option.
You've walked into a role really
That's the other
where
option.
you're up for scrutiny, and sadly you didn't do a good job. Like, and you are there to take responsibility. That's the role of any managerial role, and definitely the job of
highest
a PM.
office in the country, I
So-
guess. Yeah, and don't get me wrong, it's right that she resigned.
Do I
Not
think she
personal
should take
job.
her check though? Yes, I do. She worked a job. Fair enough, she didn't do it overly well, but I don't know why we're arguing about how much money she should take. I just think it's not good. Like, if you think that money is going to go to the rest of the public, it's not.
Exactly.
It's going to go towards some wine for
for the next
for
the next house
for
party.
Rishi's party, for getting into office. That's what it's going to go to. It ain't going to go to you. So stop arguing.
I don't
over
know
it.
if I don't know if you've seen it as well, but I got an email, change.org, hey, sign this petition, a petition to get Liz Truss to forego, to give up her £115,000 annual allowance that everybody gets to be the next Prime Minister. For me, is she next Prime Minister? Yes. So she gets the allowance. Period, full stop, that's it. Unless you're going to take away from everybody, then fair play. But it's everybody or it's nobody. This in-between of, well, I didn't like this Prime Minister or didn't it? No. Pick one. Because actually, wouldn't it be worse if she stayed in office and just held office even though things were going wrong? No, she did the right thing stepping down. Take a check and go and do a job as MP and restore your...
Also, can I just say, I think it's utterly ridiculous that we put it down to some public change.org. Like, I'm sure I've had a change.org for like some Katie Price mission that she was on. I'm not being funny, but like,
you can do anything
not
for change.org.
everything should be on change.org. I just think it's utterly weird. Like, I'm
Oh,
not going to change someone's salary from signing a petition. I don't know anything about the contracts that they've signed. I haven't seen any detail.
No
I
idea.
don't really know what she did. I don't know how long she's worked in office. I don't know what like all the entry requirements are to get that check. So for me to sign a petition on just because someone said, I don't think that, like, no.
Yeah,
Sorry, no.
I'm not down for it personally. Do you keep the check or give up the check still?
I don't really care, to be honest. Like,
Money's not going to come out and go anywhere
no, it's
interesting
not
to
coming
you.
to my pocket if she doesn't take it, so I really don't care.
Yeah, fair. So we've got a new Prime Minister announced a few hours ago. Rishi Sunak is our new Prime Minister.
I've been a long-term fan.
When it came to like the debates, I thought Rishi came across best. He had the most realistic plan. He was acknowledged the problems, said it was going to be horrible, but it will be fixed in the long term. While Liz was more like, oh no, we'll just borrow more money and it will be fine. And everything he said would happen has happened. So of this bunch, yeah, I think he's the right person. I would have been mad if it was Penny though. I liked how Penny came across. I think Penny was like, yeah, she's anyway. This is depending how much you're into politics.
Of what Penny does.
That's the problem. I can just tell you that she comes across really well. Very eloquent speaker.
The only issue that Rishi has is that people don't like wealthy people. They don't like successful people. Boris Johnson slightly got away with it because he was like born into wealth. So they're like, oh, you're a bit silly. You're a bit stupid. It's all right. Someone that's intelligent and wealthy is problematic for this country for some odd reason. So I feel like Conservatives have now got that battle to fight. Whereas if you've got a northern accent and you're part of Labour, suddenly you're for the win and you're for the workers, which I find, again, odd because I don't know what they're doing for policies. But again, I don't know what they're actually doing for workers. I don't know what anyone is doing for people on the ground.
We're just that... what's it called? There's a word for it. I can't think what the word is right now. But in essence, like popularity politics. It's not actually, hey, what are you doing? It's, do I like the look of this person, the way this person speaks, and the little that I've been fed about their backstory, as opposed to, hey, what will they actually do once they get in office on the ground? Which, this is why I want you young people to get into politics and start. And you don't have to jump in and deep dive. Start with watching a couple interviews. Watch BBC Question Time once a week. Just see like little bits and start to get a taster. Question Time's great because it's not all politicians on the panel either. Sometimes it might be your favourite celebrity or journalists or business people. So it's great.
I don't know if it would be your favourite celebrity. They've got some
like your favourite celebrity. I mean, you're not going to see
people on there. I don't think you're going to see Cardi B on the Question Time anytime soon.
Yeah, I don't know if Cristiano Ronaldo is lined up. Stormzy could do it. Dave would be great.
Stormzy, I'm unsure.
I think Akala has done it already, but I'd love him to come back as well.
Akala is probably, to me, he's an academic before he's
political.
A famous person. Yeah, he understands political history. He understands politics. I feel like Dave is still a songwriter prior to politics.
That's fair.
So if you're going to get
the first album I ever bought was Akala's.
Yeah, I get that. I just think his politics and academia outweighs his songs at the moment.
You look at him as more as an academic than an artist.
Yeah, 100%. I think I actually quoted him in one of my dissertations.
Fair play. Yeah, he's awesome. He's absolutely awesome. He's been on it. I hope he comes on again very soon. Yeah, we had to touch on it. It'd be wrong to have a new prime minister and just continue the conversation as if nothing's happened. We'll keep doing a little check-in, man. Even if it's a 30-second little check-in to let you know what's happening.
Never know. In a couple of weeks might be general election.
It's not a bad idea. There's pros and cons.
It's just cost weight. So it just if you're all angry at Liz Truss taking a check. General election is going to take more money out of the economy right now than ever before. So it's great that you get your vote, and we know that probably Labour will go in. The issue is that
the money that
is going to go into that is just outrageous.
Is
again
serious.
So anyone that's arguing that and then arguing for Liz Truss to give back her money is slightly contradictory.
Yeah, you can't have it both ways. So last week we spoke about this concept of quiet quitting. Storm, you brought it to the table. You explained to us what it was. And we had a little back and forth because we all stood in very different places on it. And since we've got the questions, you want to revisit it, and this time revisit it with Eliza on the panel. So just for the listeners, sometimes people hear the podcast for the first time. Storm, can you just give us a quick breakdown of what quiet quitting actually is?
Yeah, so it's basically this somewhat new, but not really new, more like it's just been put in the public eye phenomenon that Gen Z mostly is taking part in. And it's to do with acting your wage and only doing your job description, basically. So you come into work at 9 when your job description says you're meant to be there, and you leave at 5 when it says you're meant to leave. You do your job whilst you're there, and you do it somewhat well, but you don't strive to do more than you have to do to keep your job, basically. That's what it is. And it's the concept of knowing your worth and acting your wage. Those are like the two main statements that kind of coincide with it. And it kind of arose because people are feeling frustrated that they're not getting the recognition they think they deserve. So this is kind of like a protest to climb the corporate ladder by building those relationships with your employer that old generations have done.
Interesting. So when you saw the feedback and the questions that came from listeners, what kind of thing was coming back?
A lot of people felt that we mentioned points,
Mhm.
but we didn't kind of go more in depth about what that means or how it would affect employers and employees.
Okay.
So, for example, I think we mentioned if you don't like your job, just quit. And it's like a lot of people are very angry about that because they were like, what if I'm in a position where I can't just quit? What if I've got responsibilities?
Yeah.
What if like I love the job that I'm doing? It's just that my employer isn't a good employer, basically. And I don't want to lose that job because I love what I'm doing, but I also feel very unappreciated. Don't feel like I can talk to them. And now you're telling me to quit. Like, what should I do?
Cool.
So it's like things like that popped up. And
Okay.
there were also some points that I'll read out like when we get into the conversation.
Awesome.
Yeah, that were quite interesting.
Cool. Well, I think the first one was an interesting one of like the whole just quit thing. I know for me, it's never a just quit as your first option at all. Your first option is to put some work in, have the conversation with the employer, get a clear understanding of what's expected of you in order to proceed to the next level, get that in writing, and then go and do the thing. And then once you've done the thing, going back, and if at that point they still don't make any changes, even though you've done everything that they've laid out that you need to do to get to the next point, at that stage, that's when I'm going to start shopping around for another job. Because if there's been that clarity between you and they're still not living up to it, then there's a problem. And then I start shopping for jobs. Now, if you're in a position where like you can't quit, and I'd never recommend quitting before something else is lined up, but you can start looking. You can start reaching out. You can start handing out CVs and applying and doing interviews while you're still working somewhere. So I think if it came across as like just quit, walk out, no, don't just quit, walk out. In my opinion, anyway, do those steps first, and that's like the last resort. What I'm saying is, don't end up sitting somewhere being completely unhappy, also not doing your job properly, because ultimately, eventually, they'll probably get rid of you. But an interesting point. I understand where you're coming from, Eliza. You weren't here on that episode. So I guess just firstly, your general feeling or opinion on this concept of quiet quitting.
I get it, and I get the frustration. I think the older generations did work their way up the corporate ladder, whatever that meant, and I think COVID, to all generations, not just exclusively to the younger generation. I think we can see that in like things like nursing and healthcare specifically, where the older generations are now like, hold on a second, I don't want to give up my life to a job. I sort of want a mix of both. My argument or my problem occurs when someone says, well, I can't just quit because my life depends on the job. Right now we're in a sort of economy where since we left did the whole Brexit thing and we left the EU, where there are countless amounts of jobs right now. So my concern is if that you're worried and you're going to interviews and you're not getting the job, you're not good enough. and like not in a blunt, like, well, yeah, in a blunt way.
Yeah.
I guess like if you're struggling to find a job, the problem is you. And like, sadly, you're gonna have to stick with your employer for a period of time until you get better at whatever it is you do, or change sector completely. And this is the original point of why I always say to people, try and get that education underneath your belt. A lot of jobs ask for a degree whether they need one or not. And it's not, I think companies will move away from that over time, but it's been a very recent thing where police officers have been said, well, we want you to have a degree. There's hardly any police. No one wants to be a police officer. But they're still going, oh, well, maybe we should raise our expectations because of the type of people that we want as police officers. And I think sort of the way that I would like the economy to go is that we respect our public services way more. However, with respecting our public services way more, and that means paying them more, that means more entitlement to discounts and free things like that. It also means that our expectations of employing those people would be higher. So if you're coming in and you don't have a good education, you didn't do well at school, or you didn't go and get your A-levels or go to college and whatever, those things around you are now less than. So I know me going with a degree and a master's will beat somebody or get through the door quicker than somebody that doesn't have those things. So I'm now ahead on experience as well as having those things under my belt. And I just think, like, be be very wary of that from a young age, of like going, okay, I don't know what I want to do, and that was my problem. I didn't know what I wanted to do, so I went and got those things under my belt, so I had the option to, if an employer was treating me badly, which they have, especially when I was pregnant and a teenager, I got let go from 2 companies, nothing. Do you know what I mean? There was no written warning, there was just, you're gone. It was a fight to get my last month's pay. But I fortunately was like, got myself out of that situation. You have to work or do something to get out of there. You didn't go and get a degree, and I think that was on the basis of you knew what you wanted to do. Yeah. You didn't go and get a degree, but that was on the basis that you do work hard at what you do. So you have to have like those different things underneath your belt. When I asked you for an employer's reference, you weren't completely and utterly worried about me going to your employer. If you're quiet quitting, that is going to be a problem, because employers don't owe you a reference. They just don't owe you one. And to be honest, they're quite busy of going to give you a reference anyway, but it can hold up you making that venture into another company if you don't have a reference. So my mum always used to say, get a reference while you're at the job. Ask them to write you a reference. It makes it more awkward, but you could just be like, oh, I just need a reference for this course that I want to go on, in comparison to when you're actually trying to move on and get a job. I've always had good relationships with all managers that I've gone with, so even though those companies did let go of me, I always had someone at that company of a seniority level that would do me a reference anyway, right. Because those relationships mean everything. I think if I was being lazy, I wouldn't have had one. But I've worked for £3.75 an hour and I've gone above and beyond. I don't like doing the bare minimum. That's just never been me. I think also my mum was in a job, hated it for a long time, but she was a single parent, had 2 kids that needed to pay the bills. She didn't have a degree, so she felt stuck. And seeing that firsthand and not really having any leeway, she didn't really, and she went above and beyond for that school. I don't think that having minimum amount of options or feeling like you're stuck is a good place to be. But equally, my mum didn't really venture out and try and do anything. So for me, I feel like if you don't have any options, or if you're struggling to find a job right now,
well, I guess it's people
no problem
in jobs, isn't it? The quiet quitting people. It's like you've actually managed to secure the job. You're in there. But
I mean, like if they're already quiet quitting. So for example, if Storm was like, oh, I don't really like Man, I don't like Eliza, so I'm just going to do the bare minimum. I'm not going to answer their phone. I'm going to do my 9 to 5 job, and if they contact me afterwards, I'm not answering the phone or whatever. But then Storm is struggling to go anywhere else, even though she's unhappy. The problem is with Storm, because actually she should be able to get a job anywhere right now, is what I'm saying to you. The amount of jobs that are out there in loads and loads of different companies, there are loads. They might not tick the box that you want to tick, but welcome to the job market. It's hard. It just, like, that's what it is. So I just feel as though you're not taking the risk as a company, you're not taking a risk as a manager. You have to understand that managers that are above you are on target for numbers. They have to go to regular meetings. They have to prove their jobs consistently all the time, because they're taking a bigger paycheck than you. If you're on minimum wage, you probably don't have to prove your job every day. Me, I have to prove my job every single day. We have meetings every single day about the job that I have to prove that I'm good at what I'm doing. So I think, like, when you're on that lower band, you don't have to do that. You don't even see that, really.
I think the whole point of quiet quitting, it's not just you getting a job and then you do the bare minimum. It's not people who have management who maybe can't pay them as much but are still good management. Like, they still understand life happens and things can happen. I don't think that's what it's all about. I think it's more if you're in a job and you have tried already and you have not been appreciated, you're doing the workload of 2, 3, 4 people and still getting paid for one person. There is no kind of relationship there between you as an employee and your manager. I think that's where it starts. That's the frustration. And then people are like, all right, I've tried. I've got nothing to show for it. And maybe like a kind word once a month, that doesn't pay my bills. So now I'm just going to do what you're paying me to do, because I've done the work of 2 people and I've still only got paid to do this one job. So now why should I go above and beyond for you when you're doing nothing for me in return? I think that's more what it is.
I think there's a a level of sort of expectation that everyone has in a job. And if I go to message you outside of your contract hours and you don't respond, there's nothing I can do about that. You're just where you're contracted. So I get it in a sense of like, well, I've been working hard, I'm not being appreciated, so 5 o'clock, phone's off, you can't contact me, I'm not answering emails, etc. And to a degree, work-life balance, great, fantastic. I think where the difficulty comes is if you're in that scenario and you don't feel appreciated, you don't feel like, and by the way, appreciation is an interesting one. I'd love to like hear people's thoughts on what appreciation means from an employer, because like for me, it's an exchange of this is what the company needs and you're going to get paid, and you've been getting paid on time every time. And now like that's not enough, there's more. So what does it mean to you individually? Like, I know I like to be appreciated, don't get me wrong, but equally it's like,
yeah,
the whole like, I've got nothing to show for it. It's like you've had a job for 6 months, for a year, you've been paid on time every time, you've got like those other benefits, they're contributing to your pension, those kind of things. I think doing just enough in any scenario will get you just enough in return. Give an average effort, you get an average return. And then when you go and move on to the next stage, it won't be a step up, it'll be a step across. It'll be like going from average to average. Maybe in a better environment, great. But I just feel like once you get into that element of this is all you're entitled to from me, this is all I've got to do, it's really hard to then shake that and shift that and do better somewhere else. So I think my fear always comes from an individual taking the personal choice to only do just enough, even in an environment where actually I don't feel the love, I don't feel the appreciation here. I've done that, like the £3.64 at the bowling alley. Don't get me wrong, bowling alley, I felt love and appreciated there, to be fair. But I've had jobs where I didn't, and you know, I'd come in, hey, how are you? I'd be like, oh, I'm amazing. I'd be like, well, amazing isn't actually an emotion, so that doesn't make. I have like comments coming back like that, and you're like, bro, I'm just trying to bring some light to the job. But when I'm on job, I'm on job, and I'm doing my thing, and I'm going above and beyond. And
yeah,
just because, for me personally, I'm here anyway, and I'm getting paid. So why would I come in and not do as much as I possibly can, if that makes sense? So yeah, I think there's a line also where your employer is taking the mick. If you're doing 3 people's jobs, that doesn't sound right. I'd start to have words about that. I'd start to communicate that. And if it's not a comfortable, if you're not comfortable enough to communicate with your employer, you're just in the wrong job. You're in the wrong environment. It's not for you. Don't quite quit. Start searching for other jobs and go and do it, because the environment's wrong. So yeah, that's why whole quite a quick thing. Just I don't know. I don't like it. I feel like it doesn't address the issue.
yeah,
It allows the issue to continue, and I'm just going to lower my standards now.
Yeah.
And I think if you did that in any other area of life, things would mess up. Oh, my partner's not appreciating me. Well, do you know what? I'm not appreciating you either. Cool. Your relationship's going to be over in about 3 months. Do you know what I mean? So yeah, that's my thing with it. The mentality and the.
I think there's like 2 sides. So I haven't touched on the employer side, but let me do employee. I agree with what you said. I don't think you should lower your standards. I think also like I think people forget, like, you write your own CVs, you go to interviews for those future jobs if you're not happy in your job. And I also think if you've sat down, you've had a conversation with the employer and they haven't changed, they're not going to. You give them a 6-month period grace. You could have that conversation at 3 months. You could have that conversation at 6 months. If in a month's time after that they've still not done anything, they're not going to. It's like, you know, when people like try to change people in relationships, they're not going to change. That's it. As much as you might love the company, as much as you love colleagues that you work with, if you're, for example, if you're not happy with working from home and you need to work from an office, or you need to be around people, which is a lot of people struggle at the moment, especially my generation, where they're getting told we're going to close the offices, it's going to save us 150 grand a year, blah blah blah. Well, I like going into the office, I like being around people, I like to see my colleagues. They're not going to change that, sadly, because you're not bringing 150 grand into the company. So leave. I understand that there is a worry for leaving. I understand that people have bills and people have stuff to pay, and especially in today's environment. But in addition, in today's environment, it is a workers' world out there. People need people, and people are doing lots of different things, which I'll get onto, of what employers are doing to try and hold on to people. I just personally think they're the wrong things. So I think like you said, you shouldn't lower your standards. Remember that when you do go above and beyond, that's your story to tell. Yes, you're doing it for that person's end bottom line, the company's bottom line, but you have that story to tell in an interview. People don't like lists on CVs anymore. People very much like to hear you, like they like to see you, they like to hear what you did and above and beyond to go and get that job that's the next step up, to get that job that pays more money. So in my last job, I went and hit everyone's targets for the whole entire year. They didn't pay me any more money, they didn't give me their salary, and they didn't let those people go that got 0, but I was able to tell that story to get my next job, and that was a step up. So I think like that's for you, and you can hold that. And for me, I like being the best at what I do. I like being the best in the company. So I wouldn't do very well at someone going, oh, everyone's just pretty much the same here, everyone's just average. And I like doing the best. I like leaving there and going like, I don't really care about anyone else. I did great today. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. I think that comes from like the self-care that you give yourself, just reminding you at the end of every day that you did a good job. And fortunately, I have you at home, so I'm able to have those rants, I'm able to have those conversations with you. Right. So I don't necessarily feel like I need that off an employer. On the flip side, employers should be doing whatever they can do at the moment to retain people. Yeah. Because like I just said, it's a workers' environment. People will give up and they'll go and live with their mum and dad over working for someone that they don't get along with or working in an environment they don't like. What I have a problem with at the moment is that employers are spending a lot of money, and I mean in the tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, on all these little apps to make people more engaged within their workforce. So whether that's, a mental health app, you can sign up to this and you can give awards to your colleagues. I don't want that. Actually, that's laborious to me, to go on once a week, write some requested feedback and give an award to someone because I have to as part of an admin task once a week. I actually don't want that. I would rather you go, do you know what, once a month, here's some money to go out and have a dinner for everyone. Or, do you know what, everyone's been bought a pizza to their home on like the end of the month. Do you know what I mean? That to me is better and more engaging than taking place on some brain tasks on an app. And that's not to say that mindfulness isn't a thing. I think it is. But if you want to invest in mental health, again, I would say, why don't you get a counsellor to come into your office or to come on Teams 2 days of the month and sit down with either a group or one-to-one with people, depending on how big or small your company is. And they have a 20-minute session with that counsellor where they go, this is the things that I'm worried about in my job. These are the things that are either worrying me personally, and then they can point out, well, you could do this, you could do that, and you could do this. That would make you feel better. It would be a super quick conversation because people would know that it's coming up. They know what they want to discuss. It's compulsory, I would say. So no one feels like, I don't want to take part in that because it's a little bit embarrassing, or I don't want to be like labelled that I've got a mental health issue. But that's actually more worthwhile than a mindfulness app that anyone can really get on their phones anyway for free. We all know the apps that are out there. We've got told them throughout COVID. Yep. I'm fully aware. So I think.
So you're almost saying like you go from these passive solutions to keep employer engagement, to keep employers appreciated, to actually more active engagement with your employees.
Yeah, and the simple little things. So like you said, like, kind words don't mean anything. I agree. But for a lot of the, so for example, like if you're working in hospitality, if you're working in like busy sectors where you work hours depending on what your company needs, rather than get like 3 million phone calls from your employer, a simple like suggestion message on a phone is a lot nicer. You don't feel like you're getting hassled. You don't feel like, I can't enjoy this time because I'm getting nervous now because this person's phoned me 4 or 5 times and blah, blah, blah. I feel like I have to do that. It's a simple message for them to feel like they have a little bit more control over what they're doing. And I just think like little things like that are better than, you don't have to go and get an app, and you don't have to go and get these like these people in to go and teach better. We've just been given an app where apparently it's like a coaching app where you're going to screen all the phone calls that we have. To be honest, that feels a little bit Big Brother to me. I don't really feel like that's a coaching for me to get any better. I feel like
You're being watched.
Yeah, you're being watched, or you're being told that actually you're not good enough at what you do and we need to do this, that and the other to make you better. And I just think like asking people or spending an hour every 2 weeks with your staff and just saying like what would make you happier as a group, that would be better. And yeah, like I said, like giving people a little bit more control over their role. If they wanted to come into the office, if they wanted to stay at home, like let them do that. And don't make them like feel like, oh God, I've got to pick my kids up from school today, but I don't know how I'm going to tell my employer that I need to pick my kids up from school. Just let that happen. But in addition, on the flip side, as an employee, those are little small things where if you're working from home and you are able to go and pick up your kids, remember when I started my work, you had to pay for your childminder to just have them until you finish work. Yep. And normally you were late, and then if your kid went to nursery, you would have to pay for that extra 10 minutes. So I think like when your employer does do that, don't oversee that as well. I should be entitled to that because I'm a mum or I'm whatever. Remember, like that's on you. And I think that was smoking breaks as well. They very much annoy me because I don't like if you're out there and you smoke and you're working for somebody and then you feel like you're not getting enough. Let me tell you, those smoking breaks wake up to like 2 hours of your time that you're getting paid for, where actually you're outside chatting. And I understand smoking is an addiction, but it's something that you chose to take up. And I do think I mean, going into dangerous territory as well, but I think this is the same reason why women find it harder to hold on to jobs, because when you do want a kid, you are taking 9 months off from the employer. It's a very long time, and you can't predict that. And I think to overlook that and go, well, I'm just entitled to it, I should be entitled to more, is problematic because you're not looking at what actually that employer is doing. But I think employers should be doing more, but I also think employees should either... I don't like complainers. I don't like people lowering their standards. I think they should always go up. So I think if you're unhappy, rather than quiet quit, go and do that job and do it for yourself. Be a good story to tell, but do go and look for other job roles out there, and don't expect your employer to change. If you've had that conversation, they've not changed, they ain't going to change. Like, a lot of men ain't going to change. Like, as much as you will ask them to change and you love them to absolute bits and it's going to break your heart, if they don't, break your heart sooner.
It's your motivational message for the day. Oh no, it's very true, because there are some simple things employers can do to stop this whole quiet quitting ever needing to be the case. And you know, sometimes I think when we, like me, I'm very focused on the individual, so sometimes that can come across like I'm saying, hey, it's all on you, it's your fault. I think if it's all on you and it's your fault, hey, you'll take responsibility and you'll fix things. But equally, there are some bad employers out there who don't appreciate their employees or take their employees for granted. I've bumped into them, you've seen it, and in those situations, it comes back, okay, how do you want to deal with this? Do you want to be someone who stays in this place that you're not happy and then just stays there and also doesn't put any effort in, so now there's no self-pride? But hey, you're getting a point back because you're quite quitting on them and you're acting your wage. Or do you go, all right, let me create a little plan to get out of here?
Yeah, it's an interesting question. What do you think you're gaining by quiet quitting?
Oh, okay. Is this for me?
Yeah, because...
So I think the whole movement, it's more of an American thing. I don't think it's kind of translated here as much.
Which means it's on its way.
Yeah. And in America, there's like this thing of like everyone does something as soon as one person does it. So I think it's more like a protest. You're trying to hurt the employer. I think where people go wrong is they forget how replaceable a lot of employees are, especially when it's things like retail or hospitality, and you don't need that many skills to get that job. It's very easy for an employer to be like, okay, leave then. If you won't quit, you're fired. We're just going to have like the 20 other people who are waiting for your job to like fill it. So I think what they're trying to do, they're trying to prove a point by doing the bare minimum, because it's like, I'm getting bare minimum pay, bare minimum work. They're always trying to harm the employer in the process because you're not doing as much. And I think it's the hopes that everyone jumps on it so it makes a bigger impact. That's the kind of vibe I've gathered.
Like a halfway house protest.
Yeah,
you're
like
not
you're not going all
protesting.
the way as to quit and walk out.
Yeah,
It's
you're
more
not
just,
striking.
yeah, I'm going to inconvenience you. I think that's what they're trying to do. It seems like they're trying to open a door for conversation, but they're not directly trying to say, I need this conversation. It's more like, I'm going to inconvenience you so much that you initiate the conversation to find out why.
Right.
And therefore, it's easier for me to tell you why. I think that's
Got you.
what they're trying to do.
Got you. So it's a touch of tit for tat, but then
Yeah.
hoping that it leads to, yeah.
Because I think that's interesting. So they want you to start the conversation because that would make it easier for them. I think if you want to move up the ladder or get paid more, you better start being able to start those conversations. I like the hardest interviews I've gone into over time are the ones where you get paid more money.
Yeah.
They're not nice on those calls, and they'll very much be like straight to the point. Why are you quitting your last job? What's the relationship that you have there? I think like if you're waiting for your employer to start the conversation, they're not going to. And the prime reason is companies are there to set up to make profit. As bad as that may be, if you're not, if you want like a company that revolves around people, go and work for a charity, go and work for a CIC. Companies are full blown there to make money, to pay you more, and also to give you more time or to invest in more stuff for you, like I was saying, pizzas or apps or whatever. That's going to cost them more. That's going to take away their bottom line. So they'll do anything to save money. I think if you're worried about engaging with that with your employer, it depends what contract you're on. This way everyone needs to know what contract they're on. If you're on a 0-hour contract, yeah, big problem for you because you're very disposable. There's hundreds of 0-hour contracts that are out there. They're super easy and they're very beneficial, I would say, to people that don't know what they want to do, that like to go on holidays last minute, that have either kids, grandkids, that need that flexible workforce. So I think there is definitely a need, and I only think they're going to get more.
Oh my gosh, like 17 to 19, I was 0-hour contracts all the way.
Me too.
Freedom, start my little business, got a dead day and go and pick up on 0-hour contract. Yeah, it was fantastic.
But to have those conversations with an employer where you're expecting more is like, no, but also you're not giving me more. Because also with 0-hour contracts, employees can do what they want. So if you didn't want to work that Saturday, you don't need to, because there's this company. If you're working in hospitality, for example, there's this hotel, there's this food place, there's this events place that all want me to go and work for them. So I don't need to be loyal to you. I can go and do that with everybody. And if you're not doing that with everybody, start doing that, because all employers know that most employees are not loyal when they're in the 0-hour contract world. Go and find one that treats you better. There's hundreds of them that are out there, especially in that hospitality space at the moment. I think if you're in a contracted role, it's actually very hard for an employer to get rid of you. Firstly, it's going to cost them a bunch of money to find a new recruit. Secondly, they have to read their contracts. Normally, there's a period of grace that they have to give, and they don't want to do it because it makes it awkward for them in that space. And they've normally invested a lot of time or money into you, because that 3-month period of when you start a job, most employees do nothing. Most employees sit in a room, they do some training, they've not put any money into the company, they've not actually helped the company in any way. So you've got paid for 3 months doing absolutely nothing. So that goes away from their bottom line. So I would say have that conversation, and maybe if you've got a colleague that agrees with you, jointly have that conversation if you feel like it would make it easier. But I always fear like if you're wanting the employer to start the conversation, you're either not ready for that next step up in that pay, because if you are, you should have the confidence to have that conversation, or alternatively, the only other option I can see is that you're in a 0-hour contract role, because it's harder for employees to get rid of you. But I do know people that have gone above and beyond their company and they don't get paid anymore. But again, that is due to the fact they don't ask for any more. If I look at everyone that goes above and beyond for their company and doesn't get paid anymore, it's because they won't engage in those conversations and they just say yes. I think actually continue to go above and beyond, just ask for more money. Because if you said, well, actually, and make it clear, so over the months, say, well, actually, over the last 3 months, I've worked 20 more hours. If you were to get someone on that contract, it would cost you 23 grand a year. I'm not asking for 23 grand a year. I'm asking for 5 grand a year or 6 grand a year or whatever it is. so there's room for negotiation, and you've worked it out from their standpoint. I think by going into that conversation and going, well, I want to be paid more, that employer's forgotten what extra hours you've done, in all honesty.
Yeah, right now it's like bottom line turnover.
Yeah,
what you're what? Yeah.
They're so busy of thinking of everything else, whereas you need to like make, like Storm likes to make a presentation.
100%.
I make great presentations.
Makes great presentations.
Or,
and be like very, very clear. This is what I've done. This is what I feel like I'm worth. Leave some negotiation room in there. And research, like, this is what it is for somebody to be hired into your company to fulfill those amounts of hours. And if they were self-employed or 0-hour contracts, it would actually be worth this much because it'd be worth more. So I just want a little bit more money or a little bit more grace. I'd love to be able to pick up my kids on a Thursday and a Friday from school. So can I do that without having to feel like I'm under pressure to not be able to do that?
Yeah.
But I think you have to be really clear. You have to be really self-assured, and you have to be assertive.
And these are all things that you can work on developing sort of as you're progressing, as you're growing. Like if you're really young listening to this and you haven't even got your first job yet, then it's looking at opportunities around you now to start working on that assertiveness, start working on that communication. And that could be simple things like, for me, joining school council, I swear, it's one of the best things I've ever done. Purely because it just helped me get used to speaking and communicating with people who are on a higher level, you know, by name and nature, and realizing, oh, geez, they are just human beings ultimately. And if you come with a prepared argument or prepared point, they go, oh, yeah, fair, because you've come prepared and they have to listen. And I think as a young person listening to this, it can, and I guess this is where my biggest fear with this whole quiet quitting thing comes, it can create this complete level of almost entitlement, of almost like the job market's going to be amazing when I get out there, and if it's not, no problem, I'll just step down. Where actually, if you worked on developing the skills within yourself, even in that position, you've got power, you've got more options, and I just want you to keep your personal power. Quiet quitting doesn't keep your personal power, because you're now not doing what you want to do. You're doing what you feel like is good to provoke a response or provoke a feeling elsewhere. Whereas I think actually personal power is going, this is me, this is my standard, this is how I roll. And being able to do that regardless of what's going on around you. And then being able to implement change onto what's going on around you by your personal power. And I mean, school council and being youth MP taught me that.
You're
so,
advocate for school council.
I am such an advocate to school council. Join your school council, man, and become youth MP in your local area and get involved with the UK Youth Parliament. But yeah, anyway.
Yeah, it was odd. You said earlier, it's not always down to ego. And people felt like, I don't know if it was from the last podcast because I don't know what you discussed, but that people felt like they're quiet quitting because they had a big ego, because they felt like they deserved more.
Yeah, I think that was something I said about the idea of like this know your worth thing. And I'm like, well, that works both ways, because I think anytime you hear, oh, know your worth, you're like, yeah, I'm worth more. Why is that the automatic assumption that you're worth more? You might be worth less.
But this, like, that's really interesting, because I would say someone that's quiet quitting actually has the smallest ego of all. I would say I've got a pretty large ego. I know what I'm good at. Do you know what I mean? Kanye. But that gives me the confidence to go and have those discussions with my employer, because I know I'm good at what I do. If you're not, and you're waiting for someone to say, oh, I really appreciate what you do, or you're really good at what you do, that to me says you've got a small ego, because you actually don't believe it. You're too worried to go and sit and have that conversation. Whereas I know, specifically in my last job, there was no way they were going to get rid of me. I was way too good at my job. Do you know what I mean? I was so good at my job that for you to get rid of me, it would be detrimental to you. So I can sort of have those conversations left, right and centre, because I'm good at what I do. And that's when you go above and beyond. No employer is going to get rid of someone that can last minute fill shifts, that will stay over time. Like, they're not going to get rid of you. Or the ones that specifically have very good client relationships.
I was about to say, especially in those industries you spoke about. Yeah, cool. Anyone can work a till. Anyone can bring out some trainers from the back. Anyone can get bowling shoes. But can you do it like me?
Yeah.
Can you do it with the smile? Can you do it with the conversation? Can you make everyone feel comfortable? It's those intangibles that can't be trained very easily, that I think make you that level where you're like, hey, listen, you need me. They didn't say that, but you're in that position where you know you're bringing the heat every single week. So when you sit down with them and you say, oh, can I get a raise? And they're like, no. Okay, When you say, I need to earn this much or I'm going to have to weigh up my options, it's like, no. And then maybe that's where the change comes, because you've made yourself so valuable, it actually would cost me more to get rid of you or have you leave and then train someone else to get to your level. And that's where personal power comes from, versus Quiet Quit, where it's like, oh, okay, they're getting a bit lazy. If it doesn't fix 3 months, I'll replace them.
Yeah, I also think, like, there's no harm in some going a little bit over the top with your managers, because if they're not having a conversation with you, or if you feel like you can't have a conversation with them, that says to me you're either not very good at building relationships, they may not be, but also you're not looking at your opportunities to get to know them. So like every one-to-one, normally you sit there and you just get asked a bunch of questions and you feedback, oh, this is what it is, this is what it is. I think personally, the moment you get into that conversation, that's your time with your manager. Even if you're just passing the office and the manager's by yourself, go and sit with them. Be like, oh, how's your day been? How was your weekend? If they've got kids, ask them how their kids are. People love talking about themselves. And the moment you relate to them on some personal level, or you've asked about them, or on a Friday you've went and bought a coffee in for them, yes, your colleagues might look at you and be like, oh, that's embarrassing. Like, oh, they love you, or oh, you bought a coffee. They're not paying your wage. Your manager's paying your wage. And actually, you never know, he might be paying you double the wage, or she might be paying you double the wage eventually, because you went a little bit above and beyond for them. And you're not at work to make friends long term. You're at work to rise above, get paid what you're worth, and things like that. But I think even in sales, people relate to people, and if they don't see you as a person, they see you as an employee. That's when things start to become, oh, well, just do what I tell you to do.
Yeah, definitely.
Whereas, like, you're in teachers at school, never got told off for not wearing a blazer. Because I always walk past people, how are you? How was your weekend? Love your shirt. Do you know what I mean? Because suddenly you're a real person. And, like, I don't want to tell you off for not wearing a blazer because I actually quite like you.
Yeah.
And that goes into employees. We're all still just people.
100%.
And eventually it'll make those conversations easier, where the first time you're speaking to your manager isn't to ask for more money. It's not to ask for getting some time off or being sick.
Yes.
You're talking to your employer just to ask them how they are.
100%.
Rather than being like, oh, it's Catherine again, and she's got the flu and she needs more time off. And it's like, well, everyone's entitled to sick pay.
But if that's the only time I hear from you,
then that's a problem.
Sense. Do you feel like there's any type of person who falls outside of any of these sort of categories where Quiet Quitting is still the best way forward?
I think the way I see it, which is, I wouldn't say justified, but the way that makes the most sense to me is if there's an employee that's been in a job role for an extended period of time, they've done everything that's been asked of them and more.
We're talking above 3 months, we're talking 6, what are we talking?
Let's say they've been in a job for like 2 years. Let's say 2 years. Okay. And they've went above and beyond, they've formed those relationships, everything, but now the employer's complacent with the amount of effort that they've been putting in, so it doesn't seem like effort now, it just seems like they're standard. And then when you are having these conversations, they're looking at you like, but you've always done this, so now why are you making demands and stuff? Like, I expect it from you, so it's not appreciated. That's when it's kind of like, I understand where the protest is coming in, because now you're like, you're complacent, you're not seeing my point, you're expecting it, you're not appreciating the fact that this is not what I'm here for. I'm doing more because I want to move up, and you're not appreciating it. So now, to show you the difference, I'm just going to do what you pay me for, and let's see if that helps you understand. Then I kind of get it.
Yeah, so I would say to that person, why not go and apply for jobs? Keep your job and do what you feel is right in that time. For me, I would keep going to what I was doing before. If you want to quiet quit there, it will be noted. But I think go and apply for other jobs and actually see if other people would invest that money into you. I think that's the best way to do it. If you're getting rejection after rejection, it's very easy as well to apply to jobs on now, so it's not going to take loads of time. On LinkedIn, you can apply, as long as you've got a CV, and you can get them from recruitment agencies pretty quickly. They'll apply for jobs on you, and LinkedIn, you can literally do it in like 2 clicks of a button. If you get loads and loads of rejections, you're going to have to stick with your company, you're going to have a conversation with your manager. if you start getting people that are interested in you in those jobs, you have two options. You go for that interview, or you go to your employer and say, listen, I've been headhunted. You can lie. I've been headhunted for this job and they really want me. It's for a more senior role than I'm in right now. And I'm just a little bit concerned that in 2 years I've been here, I've not moved up. Is that a progression that's going to happen for me? And if so, is it going to happen in the next 3 months? If it's not, be honest, because I don't want to move over. I really love working for you. I really love working here. I've been here for 2 years. But equally, this job is paying more money. Now, every employer I've ever done that to, and actually I have been headhunted, I've never had to lie, fortunately, but every company I've ever done that to has always gone, oh no, we do really want to keep you, and thanks for coming to us, and we do really want to improve, because they don't want to let you go. They know it's going to cost them a lot of time and money. So I think that makes it better. It makes it less egotistical from you. It makes it less like I'm going in there to ask for something. It actually makes it like, we're a team.
Yeah.
And I don't want to go over here, but I would also be silly to not go over here because either I want my first house, or my kids would really appreciate the extra money, or whatever it is. And it makes them go, a wake-up call to go, oh, okay, actually, I do need to do something. I think if you don't get anything, then you need to look at why. And sometimes companies are really bad at not getting back to people about why. They'll just tell you no. But if you do have time, ask them why. And that might be like a qualification thing. It might be the standard of caliber that people are coming through. I know within my work, loads of people have applied and we've just said, we're not going to hire anyone now because people that are coming in are just not good enough. So they'll go no one over getting the wrong person. So I think, like, have those conversations and understand why and what the environment's like. And if you think the environment is actually really heated at the moment and you're not going to get it, then that sort of leaves you in the job and the sector that you're in. You could move sector and you could go and possibly get more money, but it means that what you're in right now is probably the situation for everybody in that sector. Because there's a lot. I mean, I had a conversation the other day. The energy bills have gone up, and one of my clients used to be paying 150 grand a year. They're now paying 320 grand a year. That's a lot of money for the bottom line of that company. And for them, that stress is high. So for people right now that are running a company, it's not to say they should take away from you. No, not at all. But like your bills are doubling, their bills are doubling, but theirs is doubling a lot more than like your home bills. So I think just be wary of, okay, the companies are actually going through something and this is a sector or countrywide thing. I need to give my company a minute to get back on their feet. And he said in 6 months it might be fine again. It's because we're in winter, and winter's a really bad time. In summer, those bills might go down, and he might more open to putting place in things for his employees. But right now he just can't think of that because the bottom line is so gone. So I think, like, make sure you take into those considerations as well.
So that shopping around is power, because you learn about the industry, you learn about the options, you learn how attractive you are as a prospect to other people, and then you've got negotiation power. And again, that personal power, which I think is everything. Did you have any specifics that came up?
Let me have a look.
See, and this is it, people. If you're interested, Aim a Little Higher is on Instagram. We're on the TikTok. You can email.
The TikTok, can you please stop saying that?
I don't think I ever will.
It is awful.
Every time.
I never will. Do you know why? Because the TikTok, it's a monster. It's an absolute monster. It's a beast, and it's.
The thing is, you say you're scared, but like I don't ever look at TikTok. Like TikTok, I don't enter it. I don't really go on it. I'll delete the app regularly. You, on the other hand, at least like 4 times a week, you'll send me a TikTok link. And I'm like, this guy hates TikTok, and I don't click on them because I'm like, I'm not going to watch it.
Oh, they're funny.
No,
man. I'm telling them to you for a reason.
I know, but like, it's like, I don't like if you morally think, I just don't understand why people are like, let their morals slide when it comes to certain things. If you morally think TikTok is bad, then TikTok is bad. Stop adding time to it.
In fairness, I don't think anyone who went on TikTok went on it thinking it was going to be good. Because the first time I went on TikTok, I was like, all of these kids are doing this TikTok thing. I think it's like Musical.ly. This app is so stupid. So I made an account, I went in and I got addicted straight away. And that's how they get you. It's one good video, one funny video.
The TikTok is dangerous. The TikTok is dangerous. So I call it the TikTok. But luckily for me, I got this.
Both of your morality is very, very weak. Bendable, flexible. Morality
know.
should not be flexible.
I know.
It's just too good.
I know.
It's so bad that it's good. I think that's what it is.
I'll never upgrade to any paid versions or anything, though. Do you know what I
No.
mean? Just
It doesn't matter. It's done by an algorithm. They're making money from you from literally just watching TikTok.
watching adverts. I know.
And then definitely you sending people links,
I
making
just-
it worse.
I know.
This
I'm
is
working
true.
on it. Here's my issue with TikTok, and it's more about, again, personal power, right? I'm quite self-aware, so I feel alright watching TikToks because I know what I'm watching. Funny. This person makes me feel unfollow. I've got the discipline to like get rid of the bits that don't hit my soul nice, so I can have a good time on TikTok. My fear is for those people who don't yet have that complete self-awareness or know how fake the world is out there, that it starts its self-esteem and stuff. And I saw a video the other day of like Asia's version of TikTok and the Western version of TikTok, and they're two completely different experiences. In Asia, they're like, hey, look at this person who's done this amazing engineering project and that kind of thing. Over here, it's like, hey, look at this person shaking their booty. Can you shake your booty like this? And it's like, one of them's gonna really grow their economy and create a really creative and high skilled workforce. The other's gonna.
I feel like you're still arguing my point. I'll be honest. I feel like if we were Conservative versus Labour, you'd be fighting for the wrong party right now because you've literally just listed all the reasons that it's bad.
It's bad. It's horrible.
And yet
it's
here you
terrible.
are still sending links. So
I know, it's so funny. It's so funny. But yeah, if you are using the TikTok, just please filter your feed. That's all I'm saying. Filter your feed. All right. Choose the people that add to your soul. Those who take away, delete, block, all that good stuff. So they never come up on your For You page ever again, ever. And then go to the following section because then you've picked them people. But anyway, we digress. That's a whole episode. We'll do a whole social media episode.
Yeah, I
Gonna
think
have to do
that's its own subject. But I think we covered the main points that the feedback I had, so that's great. What I would say is, from the whole perspective of an employee, if you're worried about starting these conversations, it doesn't have to be a case where you're saying, I want a meeting with you, let's sit down and have that formal talk. It can simply be a passing question like, do you think there's any promotions available soon? If they say no, you know that there's not, and deal with that. If they say yes, then that can open a door to the conversation. It doesn't have to be scary and formal, but I would say just make sure you can back up what you're asking for, because a lot of the time people can't, and that's why they're getting rejected so much. If you do know you're doing a lot of work, document it, even if it's just for you to refer back to, so that in the future you have the evidence, and it gives you more credibility when you are asking for these things, because you're not the only employee that's going to be asking for more money.
Yeah, keep your receipts.
Yeah, but I also think that employers shouldn't put so much responsibility on the employees to always be raising these topics. It should be something that employees are keeping track of to an extent. I know, like, if you've got 1,000 employees, it's difficult, but if you are noticing that someone is doing good work, just make a note of it. Yeah, because it's positive reinforcement, isn't it? Like, I know I said, oh, kind words don't pay the bills, but to some people it means a lot just to be like, you're doing a good job, just so that you know that I know.
Love languages, right?
Yeah, different things, different people. But I think if you are always telling someone they're doing a good job, and then on the back end you're not really giving them anything because of it.
You mean like, I don't know, going outside your house at 3 o'clock and clapping?
Yeah.
For a year.
Yeah, and not you know,
not
giving them a
it.
Liverpool salad. That's where the problem lies.
Absolutely.
But the more that I think the more you congratulate someone, you as a person kind of recognise that they're doing a lot as well.
True.
So I think there's improvement to be made on both sides. I think quiet quitting isn't the way to go, only because there's no communication. And in any circumstance, if you're not communicating, nobody knows what's happening. You don't know if your employer had something in the pipeline for you, and now that you're doing less work, they can't give it to you now. So you've just ruined your own opportunity. And the employer might not know that you even wanted a promotion in the first place. That's why they could have given it to the next person, because they asked for it and you didn't. So they thought you were comfortable where you were. So there's pros and cons for both. I think, like I said, raise the conversations for people that find it a bit awkward. There's things like HR that you can go talk to. I'm sure like some places have other ways that you can talk to people. Send an email if you can't do it in person.
Yeah.
A lot of people prefer that. Send a text. But in some way make it known. I think that's the easiest way to go about it if you struggle with going directly to your employer. And if you're worried about like negative backlash, there are things in place to protect you from that. If you are being treated unfairly, there's ways that you can combat it. So everyone just chill out a little bit. They're all being very dramatic.
It's just a little bit. Actually, that's a great point on the communication. Email's the best. Aside from speaking, email's the best. And like even after the conversation, I'd send an email. Thanks for the chat earlier. Just to confirm we spoke about purely because there's a record of it.
Yeah, you got it in writing.
Yeah, and text can be deleted, and emails are just email. Email will be beautiful. Even social media. My Facebook got hacked. Lost all my messages on there. So if I had been keeping up evidence of conversations with my employer on Facebook, gone. So yeah, email is beautiful. So even after a verbal conversation, a physical meeting, take notes, get an email out. Thanks for your time earlier. Just confirm. Here's what we spoke about. Here's what I'm going to do moving forward. Speak to in 3 months. Send. You're covered. You've got a paper trail. Paper trails are powerful. Powerful. So yeah, beautiful. I feel like we went back over and filled the.
Yeah, I feel like it's also good for people, like employees in particular, to hear employers' perspectives. Because I think a lot of things are like they happen undercover. Employees know what they need to know, and that's pretty much it. So I think opening the conversation and explaining a little bit more from like employees' point of view, you've got a very different point of view as well. Hearing that, it makes a lot of things make more sense to me now than they did before. I'm still in the middle.
Really?
I'm still in the middle. I see it from both perspectives, but I understand why things might happen a little bit more now. So if they ever do happen to me, luckily I'm in a position where these things don't really affect me that much. And if they do, I can just text you guys. It's not a big of a deal.
Yeah, text me. Don't email me.
Don't email you.
I think just on one thing you said earlier, like worked with them for a while, like 2 years, and I think a lot of big employers especially have probably been in that business or that sector for a long time, especially ones that make the decisions about moving up. And I think for them 2 years used to be nothing. People used to be in a role and work for the same company for 25 years. So, and they wouldn't see any progression until their 7th year. I think although yes, they should be learning about the fact that times have changed, it's also to educate people now, like being in a job for 2 years is actually a really long time. Where 25 years was like a long time then, now 10 years is a long time. So we've like halved it. So people that used to go up in 5 years should be looking to go up in 2.5. Yeah. And I think it's about having those open conversations, which is why I say meeting with your team once every 2 weeks, where those things can just be chatted about for an hour, is really helpful. You mentioned HR, and I think HR is really funny because a lot of people don't like their HR or don't even know who their HR are. And I think HR need to do a lot more, but also employees know they're there for the company at the end of the day, and they feel like they're not there for them, which is why I feel like companies should bring somebody else in from outside for those 2-3 days to just sit and have a one-to-one, so those people feel like they can share something, and then they can have a conversation in that time to go, well, this is the best way that you could approach this person. Or they could go back to your employer and go, listen, a couple of people said this, that and the other, what's the best way for them to approach this? Almost like a middle ground.
Like a mediator.
Yeah, where it's not HR, where they don't feel like, well, I know this is going to go back to my manager, I know they're going to know it's from me, even though they are there for you, so they shouldn't be doing that. But I know that people do feel that. So, yeah, I just feel like from employers, that's what they could do from the other side. They need to learn that 2 year period is actually now equivalent to being there in a company for 5 years. And in addition, getting somebody else in to do that middle ground communication would be really helpful. I think it would help people retain more, especially when people are working from home.
That makes a lot of sense, actually. I think you look across your life and you'll see that pattern. Like, even simple things. So, like, in football, you had, like, always. Because Arsenal are top of the league, so just while we're at the top, it's got to be mentioned every single time. For those of you watching the video, I realise I've got a jacket on, but let me take it off for a second, just so I can show. Yeah? Representing. Top of the league. Anyway, but even in football, you had, like, your Arsene Wenger's, one of the greatest managers, if not the greatest manager to ever manage a game. Sir Alex Ferguson. You had managers who were at teams for years. Now, someone does 6 months, doesn't do a good job, they're out. They're coming for a year, they're out. The turnover's crazy. Same with TV.
Same as members of parliament.
Literally. Look at TV. How long do like your favourite programmes last? Now everyone's getting like a few seasons, then it's the next thing. Like there's not many like staple. Look at Fresh Prince and how long that went on for, and how many different generations it touched. So I think everything is getting like a lot more shorter, and so don't look at this area of your life and assume it's not going to be the same there. Look at what's going on in the world. It is still relevant. Apply it to your business. Think, okay, how can I? It's kind of like gap that trend, and how can I work on it? So yeah, I think quiet quitting is not the way personally, but I get it, and I think employers actually have a lot of power to stop it by just doing those little things, and employees have a power to stop it
Almost
as well.
like people sitting and sticking themselves to the road.
Oh gosh,
Don't know how that's going to solve climate change. Whereas if they actually sat down and had a conversation with
we've got a whole climate change podcast coming up, because some of the protests are so performative. It's to the point where people are like, "Is this a hoax, or is this like?"
Wow, pushing people in the opposite direction.
Yeah.
To be fair, there's a lot of things going on right now that are pushing people in the opposite direction to where you intend to, because of how aggressive you come across, because of how offended you get on the other side, because of the fact that I'm trying to get to work in my electric car, and you're telling me about climate change. I'm like, bro.
Yeah.
I'm an electric car with solar panels on the house, and my heating's off, and I'm sat here in traffic when I've done everything an individual can do, and I'm still getting blocked. So yeah, I completely agree. Like, we know where the Houses of Parliament are. Go glue yourself there. Like, why are you? Yeah. Anyway.
But for me, that's a little bit like the equivalent. Like, don't just do things passively. It's like that whole passive aggressive thing. Don't do it passively. Go and take it to the person that can actually make the change.
Yeah.
Because if you just leave it inside, or you stick yourself to a road, nothing's going to change, sadly, for you. It's lovely that you're doing it, and I can see the point that you're making, but it's actually not making the point to the right person. You're just making a point on TikTok, or you're making a point to the drivers in their car that can't change the law.
100%. It's like when going to schools, like, oh, I hate the uniform. I'm like, cool, how many of you are on school council? No hands! Well, the uniform's not going to change. Then you join the school council. Join the school council, people, if you haven't got that. Yeah.
I'm all up for school uniform, though. Big up school uniform.
I love school uniform.
I don't mind school uniform.
Oh, I love.
I just don't get the whole like socks thing. You know, when schools are really adamant that you have.
It needs to be dark socks. You cannot have colourful socks. We don't want to see your personality.
It's really not that serious.
I think school uniforms should be fixed. Socks, custom, by custom, whatever you want. Backpack, whatever you want.
Yeah.
Pencil case, whatever you want. Like, give me some space to just express myself.
Have
a little
some
bit.
wiggle room in the summer as well. Why are you making these kids sit in like jumpers and blazers when it's 24 degrees outside?
Literally, just relax, man. It's all right. Especially as the world of work now, the uniform policies changed a whole bunch anyway. So yeah, I agree. Have a uniform, but relax. It's okay. Listen, thank you very much. You could have been anywhere in the world, listening to anything.
Good for my ego.
Yes, it is. And you chose to listen to Aim Not Higher podcast. We appreciate you. We appreciate the feedback. Like I say, this is a podcast for you. So when you let us know what you need, delved or delved.
Oh wow,
Did you
delved. That's not a
wow.
word.
Delved.
Yeah.
My gosh. Do you know I got an A star in English literature? I don't know how.
Did you know that you're
at
a
this
speaker
point.
as well? You just said delved, a word that doesn't
And I get
exist.
paid to speak. I do write poetry, and in poetry you can do what you like. Poetic license. So I'm going to use my poetic license and say, delve into. I can't remember what I was saying now. That threw me. That was so bad that it threw me completely.
No one has any idea what you're talking about.
So yeah, no, I don't know what we're delving into. It's gone. It's absolutely gone. Listen, thanks for listening. Thanks for your opinions. Thanks for your questions. Keeps us on track. Keeps us doing what you want us to do. So if you've got any other questions, we are on Instagram, the TikTok, Twitter, and email, and anywhere you get your podcast. And if you think there's one person who could benefit from it, share the podcast with them as well. Thank you for your time. I've been Kamal.
I've been Storm.
I have been Eliza.
I've never got that I have been. You know what I mean? Like, who else would you have been other than you? Like, who started that, and why did everyone continue?
I guess, like, if I was a teacher, I'd be like, I've been Mrs. Ellis Hyman. You know, like, because otherwise, like, if I was Eliza, I maybe wouldn't say certain things.
Oh, got
Whereas
you.
if I was Mrs. Ellis Hyman, maybe I wouldn't be, like, political, or maybe I wouldn't swear, you know what I mean? Whereas if I'm Eliza, I'm like, I'm just being purely me.
My authentic self. Oh my gosh, you need to do an episode on the authentic
No,
self.
let's not.
And the term,
I can't
my
stand
truth.
that. No.
I'm just speaking my truth. Okay?
That will be an episode where there'll be a lot of beeping out because I can't stand that authentic self thing.
Oh just telling you my truth, Liza. It's just my truth, okay? You got to deal with that. I'm 6'5" and I'm hench. That's my truth, okay? You got to deal with that. Listen, we'll see you next week. Thank you very much. Peace.
Have some cake before that episode, I think. A lot of cake.
I'd love some cake. I also love a freestyle from you both if there's a few seconds left of it. No?